Good morning. This Saturday, beautiful Saturday morning, the last day of the month of May, the 31st of May, 2025. My dear viewers of Wake Up Africa, my voice is a bit rusty this morning, but as we say, come rainfall, come sunshine, we have Wake Up Africa because the journey is going to be bumpy, but it doesn't mean it's gonna end. It's gonna be bumpy. We could have rainfall, we could have sunshine, but we are still forging ahead. At this juncture, I would once again like to thank you all for joining me this morning yet again and ponder onto the issues that are of significance for our continent. So today on Wake Up Africa, we're looking onto the role of tertiary education in bridging the skills gap. We're looking onto the African continent. We're looking onto how our education system in Africa does not suffice the market needs. And now the tertiary education now comes to cover that gap. If at all we're looking onto employment, but again, there are jobs that we don't they're not there. The jobs that are not created, they're not there. But again, tertiary education comes to building self-employment skills, and hence this is the dedication of the show this morning. I personally believe, and so is Wake Up Africa believes, that the more we bring tertiary education in Africa, the more the young people are able not to wait for employment opportunities to open up, but to create employments themselves, starting by employing themselves, and then with the skills as they expand, add another person, and add another person. This is Wake Up Africa, and today we're looking on to what role tertiary education in Africa can do to bridge up the skills gap. I'm your host, Austin Makan, and I'm delighted to bring everybody on board. To start with Alan Sobi from Uganda, Elliot from Burundi, Remy from Rwanda, Aminata Traore from here in Tanzania, but she's based in Arusha. Delighted always and honored to have her with us. We have Patricia Dede from Kenya, Mr. Talks from Nigeria. We have Noreen. I doubt if she'll be able to join us. I was talking to her earlier on, and she is exhausted. It's past midnight in the US of A, and likely she may not be able to join us, but always appreciative of your support, Noreen. Thank you so much. But again, not to forget to mention my full time always and appreciated for your time. Jolene Mtalo, my favorite listener and follower of Wake Up Africa. She never misses an episode. And my dear mother, Beatrice Makani, thank you so much for watching and giving us a critical guidance on to Wake Up Africa. This is Wake Up Africa. And upon during the week, it's been totally a long week looking on to series of meetings going on in Tanzania that I've been honored to be part of those meetings. Number one, we we had a meeting on fisheries sector, how fisheries is can be digitalized. In the past, the fishermen would just go into the sea, ocean, lakes, and just cast their nets, not knowing will I catch anything or not. Now, Marcasio comes into picture in a great deal of Africa to now bring in technologies, stakeholders that have technologies to help the farmers to be able to ascertain the location where they will find fish before they even go fishing. This is amazing invention, amazing technologies. And as we all know, most farmers, not most fishermen are not necessarily trained or have not gone to masters, PhDs, and degrees, of which some of this discussion will feature, part of this discussion will feature on Wake Up Africa today. That does your degree matter anymore? You know, we have people with their degrees and masters and PhDs in the streets. When jobs are advertised, even petty jobs where you would assume a diploma holder or max, the degree holder, would apply, but still a PhD holder, master's degree holder applies for those jobs. So we'll look onto that. So I'm looking onto this invention, fantastic invention. Marcus CEO, kudos and keep up the great work. Then we had a meeting on clean cooking by TAREA, Tanzania Renewable Energy Association, which again brought many people from all over the world in Tanzania, where I'm broadcasting this program from. And we were discussing, earlier this year, the presidents from Africa convened here in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, to discuss, that Africa, come the year 2030, would have bridged electricity gap by 80%. So initiatives like this that just ended by Tarea had a call to action whereby people were discussing for the past 2 3 days on how we are advancing or what needs to be done towards approaching that or towards bridging that gap. So it's another fantastic discussion whereby the private sector discover that the role has they have a role to play in bridging that gap and ensuring that we are getting towards mission 300. Mission 300, that 300 million people by the year 2030 would have electricity availed to them. But when we're speaking about electricity and renewable energy and clean energy, we're looking onto affordability or looking onto availability, etc. And it's fantastic discussion we had during the week. And finally, ongoing Africa Internet Governance Forum. Yet again, this is also happening here in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. It started 2 3 days ago, and we are going to end the forum today in the evening. And some fantastic discussion. Is Africa very ready to relinquish or to ensure that the generation that is up now and upcoming is future ready in terms of AI, in terms of ICT, in terms of all this fantastic stuff this IT gigs do? Is Africa ready? Now, Africa Internet Governance Forum that is happening in Tanzania, first and foremost, they're commemorating the 20th anniversary this year. They've been moving from different countries and it's landed in Tanzania. And I also gathered that it starts in the country, then it goes to the zone, like the East African, and then it goes regional, like the one that's happening now, the entire African continent, but it's also happening across other continents, and then it's going global. I think in June next month, there's a global meeting for the internet governance. And it's fantastic discussion. People just go on to one plenary to the other, discussing on how things are well catching up in that AI and the global internet space. And it's just fantastic, amazing. It's been totally a busy week. That explains why my voice is rusty this morning. But a Wake Up Africa must go on. We have people that are following Wake Up Africa. We have Africa that is following Wake Up Africa. We have generation that will look back and say, by the way, we have content online that we need to pay attention to. What is the world discussing about Africa and what we as Africans have to offer back to the world? So as the topic for today is the role of tertiary education in bridging the skills gap in Africa, and why do we need to bridge the skills gap? So the discussion is going to be focused on tertiary education has the crucial role in bridging the skills gap by equipping, okay? Intention is to equip individuals with necessary knowledge, okay, skills and competencies to meet in the evolving demands of the labor market. So I recall having read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and Steve Harvey at some point says, anything that you learned 2 years ago is irrelevant today, and anything you learn today will be irrelevant in 2 years. Now, tertiary education, some of us probably think that, okay, so tertiary education comes, when you finished your university or when you finished your advanced level secondary school or ordinary level secondary school. That is when you're required to take tertiary education. But this is a misconception or misinformation. Yes, most people opt to do that after the university to add the additional skills that, as I said, demands of the labor market, but anyone at any time can take tertiary education. Anyone at any time can take tertiary education. What do I mean? So you graduated, let's say 10, 15 years ago from the university. Probably we never, not probably, but we never had then issues of artificial intelligence. But everyone speaks of ChatGPT, everyone speaks of artificial intelligence, and you say, yo, but I'm an IT expert, and you want to just remain in your Bible at that space. And then here comes your interns or your junior officers with all this chuck, chuck, chuck. And you wonder, am I still relevant in this market space? So tertiary education is the one that now comes to bridge that gap. Okay. You could still be in the office, you could still be in your 70s and your 80s, and you say, no, this is something that I ought to learn. As I did say earlier on Wake Up Africa sometimes back, that my vice president in the United Republic of Tanzania, Dr. Isdori Philip Mpango, is reading on AI. You know, he's retiring this year from public service and he says, you know, I'm done. But he's, still doing a couple of other things. Retired does not mean you're tired. So he's still going to, I'm sure, put to use all the AI knowledge that is acquiring at the moment. So you could be in your old age, accountancy packages come in evolving every day. And nowadays, even the older generation engage into some great discussions, some savings and investment fund. We call them SACCOs, whereby they collect funds and then they distribute to amongst each other on a timely basis, and then they collect and like fantastic innovations that just ensure them that they keep busy. Now, an accountant or at that age, you also want to know if an accountant, the aspects of bookkeeping. You probably did not, you went to school many years ago, you've retired many years ago, you're not doing any accountancy anymore, but you want to sort of like bring yourself up to speed to what is happening. And so tertiary education has that role to give you the knowledge. Okay. So not just the skills, you equip yourself with the knowledge. And knowledge, as we all know, it's the application of the education. You've studied. When you put your education into practice, then you're knowledgeable. You put that is knowledge, the skills, but again the competencies, the technical know-how of doing things. But again, this is to do with the evolving demands of the labor market, the evolving demands of the world today. The world is so dynamic that, every day there's a new mobile phone that is being produced. And you want to really hang on to 19, no, yeah, early 19, 19 what in that you're still clinging to those old mobile phones that do not even have great features. With your phone now you can do so much. People just stay at home and they market their products by just simply being at their sitting rooms at home, their coffee table at home. They take a picture of a product, you know maybe a child in the house has outgrown the bicycle and they want to dispose it. They take a picture, put it on their status, and there people just say, we want this, this is the offer. And there you go. So when you cling to your old gadgets, while they're new gadgets, and the new gadgets come with new application that are just there every day, it's just amazing. The other day here in Tanzania, we launched an application of an old or longer existing bank in Tanzania. And right now, you can open a bank account from your bedroom. You can do transaction from your bedroom. So what you could do is you could move money from your account to a vendor, and the vendor can deliver service at your house. Amazing. You do not need to go to stand on those long queues. You do not need to go open up a bank account and just still again queue up, fill up paperwork, etc. Everything tells you there. Upload your picture, upload your signature, put a fingerprint on your phone. how amazing technology is taking us. Now, if you want to still cling to that old knowledge or notion of being old, it's a choice that you've made. But as we advance, we're looking on to now the role that we still have to play. Go back to school, go and acquire certain knowledge. I train on public speaking, and as of yesterday, someone was like, Austin, at my age, can I do public speaking? I was like, can you speak? Then they said, yeah, we can speak. We were like, so you can do public speaking. As long as you can speak, you can do public speaking. So age is what, you know, you personally ascertain saying that I want to take this, I don't want to take this. It's a choice that you make every day. So tertiary education gives you the knowledge, gives you the skills, and gives you the competencies, and much more. But this is achieved through various mechanisms, including curriculum development. Now, curriculum development is on the lower levels, you know. But again, those who are offering certain courses at certain times also update, improve their curriculum again based or to meet the evolving market demands. So collaboration with the industry, at times the industry tells you these are the kind of people that we want. We want IT experts with AI background or AI knowledge. So those responsible with training like myself that would go into find the expert, call in students and they come to learn, and it's just amazing. Then the incorporation of practical training experiences. So there are people who have acquired necessary skills and they're ready now to pass them on from one level to the other. So when you think of tertiary education, is not only for those in the lower grades, as long as you know there's a skill gap in you that you want filled, as long as you know there's a certain, you know, um, skill that you're missing and you need it so that you're able to do one, two, three, four. For instance, a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, has to hire a taxi service every day to go to work. And there's a car to his house. And, driving, just take a driving class. You could be of age, but take a driving class. There's a car in your house. You have to hire a driver. It's good to have a driver at times because of many reasons. My mom the other day was speaking about having a driver because a vision with age, she says when she's flashed with the light on the opposite direction, she has to slow down because she can barely see. She's not very old. This is why she's with us on Wake Up Africa this morning. But you acquire driving skills so that you're able to, facilitate your own movement here and there. Again, we spoke about creating employment. Yes, at times you allow the driver to take you around, but many other times where necessary, you drive yourself. My granddad, I celebrate him. I love him so much. At 85 plus years, he drives on his own. He wears glasses and he's reading text messages from his phone, but oftentimes he's on his own, driving his car. He's not well now. Join me as I pray for him for his speedy recovery. But I just admire this old man. I don't even see myself fit to call him an old man because he still has that energy. He drives across the city. Busy city like Dar es Salaam is not even conducive for anyone to drive. Um, um, if Tops came onto the show, he would say, "Austin, you've been to Nigeria, so you know how it feels to drive in Nigeria." Yes, it's crazy. They say if you can drive in Nigeria, New York, then you can drive anywhere. But yeah, I'm looking at the age of 85 being able to maneuver across the streets in Dar es Salaam. Kudos, Babu, and speedy recovery to you. So when we are looking onto tertiary education, my dear viewers of Wake Up Africa, I spoke about curriculum development, but as well as the aspects of adaptability. And I can't help but say that the industry input has a role to play when it comes to curriculum development and adaptability. whereby higher education institutions are increasingly seeking input from employers and the industry professions to ensure that curricula are relevant and aligned to the current and future skills need. So we need people in the offices to tell us the kind of labor market that the education system should prepare. The curriculum review. And I'm delighted to also mention that most African countries, I had this discussion with Alan Subi, she'll probably join us shortly, recently, that, we have reviewed our curriculum to make them more competence based. So you're not looking onto a curriculum that helps you memorize the content, but we're looking onto curriculum that is helping you to really um, bring up a student with competencies, not with just some knowledge of something that they really can't even put them into practice. But again, we're looking onto flexibility, whereby offering flexible course structure and specialized programs that allow students to tailor their education to specific career path and emerging fields. I think this is one of the struggles I have with Africa for the longest time. I look at my soon to be 8-year-old son, primary three, with his backpack in the morning going to school, full of notebooks and textbooks. And I'm like, God, help this boy. At least he grows up with a strong back, not a broken back. And then I kept wait, but wonder as to all those subjects. I recall in P3 myself back in the 80s, we never had used to have so many subjects. This is where, in my humble submission, a child gets very tired at very early stages, not wanting to go to school, because look onto the torture that we impose onto our children. You know, First, the bags are heavy, so you have your notebooks, then you have your textbooks, then you have some subjects even have 2 or 3 notebooks, okay? I remember geography, we used to have up until 3 books, subjects, three notebooks of the same subject. You could go to physical geography, then you go to I don't know what, regional geography, then God help us. Okay, so this is what is happening. But again, when it comes to flexibility, we speak about offering flexible course structures and specialized programs that allow students to tailor their education to specific career path, specific needs. When I grow up, I want to be a geologist. Why do I need to do all other interesting subjects that are not even related to geology? Not close. It's interesting. But again, interdisciplinary approaches, again, to as far as curriculum development and adaptability is concerned, integration into the interdisciplinary approaches allow the development of broader skill sets that are more adaptable to rapidly changing industries. Okay, so you are exposed to various opportunities, you're exposed to various knowledge, you're exposed to various, you know, market requirements, and hence the curriculum is being developed necessarily to give you those skills that you require that can now give you variety of options. Talks from Nigeria can attest to the fact that they, in their review of their curriculum, which has been done also recently, I think 1 or 2 years ago, they've involved aspects of repair of mobile phones in the curriculum. So before you even finish a certain level of education in Nigeria, you also undergo repair of mobile phone. I recall this because I was at a phone repair shop when I read this article, and I was like, this is so interesting. This is so genius. We are looking onto bigger fields, mining, agriculture, etc., not looking onto the petty jobs that young graduates can already look onto the opportunity of self-employment as soon as they hit the roads after schools. You know, they can already know. Yesterday I was at dinner with a friend of mine, Kaluse, and he spoke about he works for this hotel where we were having dinner. And he spoke about Austin. I bought from a friend a sewing machine. He's like, dude, a sewing machine. I was like, yes. I'm passionate about it. And the way he spoke so passionately about it, I was so mesmerized. I was like, okay, so you're passionate about sewing. I was like, yes, my clothes, my son's clothes, I sew them myself back at home. I tailor them myself back at home. So he buys the cloth material, goes at home, he cuts, you know, amazing, amazing. And he said, so I got myself a sewing machine. I saw them on sale and I said, let me get one. I'm passionate about this, and then he's an hotelier. Fantastic, you know. So if this was part of the education that we went through, and he told me he bought it at a throwaway price of 100,000 Tanzanian shillings, which is about 35 to $40 US dollars. And if now you have a sewing machine, you don't have a job, there you are. You can actually, I recall visiting a friend of mine up in one of the regions here in Tanzania, and she does tailoring in a house at a sitting room. It's her and a son, and she has tailoring in a house. So people go there, take measurements, and then you go pick your clothes after 2 3 days. Amazing. So when skills like this are passed on from as early ages, you are certain that by the time you finish school, as you're waiting for any formal employment, God bless, there is one, but you can engage onto that. Now, curriculum development and adaptability now gives us that room to be able to maneuver onto different disciplines, which is amazing. Now, collaboration and partnerships. In the 17th Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, 17th goal is my favorite. It speaks about partnerships. Now, industry partnerships, okay? Collaboration with businesses and industries provide valuable insights into emerging technologies, industries, trends, and specific skills requirements. We have a saying that you can't live as an island, you can't live in isolation, you can't live in silos. Okay, you've got to get feedback from the industry to tell you, hey, you're still using an old curriculum. We've moved from there. We are no longer there. And moving on to now the new curriculum and the new ways allows you, sorry, my volume just went down, allows you now to be able to ascertain the needs of the market before you go into them. Okay, so fantastic, fantastic. So you have to engage the public sector, the private sector to tell you this is what is required in the market and how to navigate about it so that you're able to custom make curriculum so that you're able to address the market demands. Okay, so industry partnerships, you're looking onto regional collaboration. The other day I was talking about regional value chains where this is being produced in this country, processed in this country, packaged in this country, and sold in the rest of other countries, looking onto Africa, regional value chains, and amazing. So when we're looking onto the regional collaboration, also looks onto regional partnerships that facilitate workforce development by aligning education offerings with local industry needs. Okay. Local industry needs. And it was the other day that I was contemplating on, Tanzania and how the agriculture sector, which is like the mother sector in Africa, the entire African continent, the way the agriculture sector should really help the regions and those regional administration to come up with the thinking that my region or my country is best known for cocoa. Let we specialize in cocoa production and ensure that every day there's more research and development so that we keep producing the best of the cocoa for this generation and the next generation, and ensure the coming generation has the opportunity in the field. So looking onto the entire cocoa value chain, for instance, I'm giving that as an example. Amazing. So when we speak of regional collaboration, we look onto workforce development, whereby, I should be able to go work in Kenyans should be able to come to Tanzania, Tanzanians, Ugandans should be able to go to work in, different parts of Africa so that we still pass the skills from one country to the other, from one generation on to the other. But again, employer involvement, how do employers get involved to as far as this is concerned? Incorporating employer representatives in curriculum design. Okay, so this is not where you lock yourself in and you say we are writing a curriculum. No, you bring in association of employers. I know one in Tanzania. I've engaged with them many times. So you bring in association of employers and tell them, yo, as we're reviewing the curriculum, what is your take? Okay, so it's not just the experts, the gurus in the education. We're also looking onto an interesting discussion during the week whereby when you have someone who is performing very well at a certain field, maybe a very good mathematics teacher, and then that teacher is plugged off that role as a mathematician, as a mathematics teacher, to either be a district commissioner, a regional commissioner, or even the headmaster, so they do not have time to go teach mathematics anymore. Do you think by any virtue that we've really assisted that person by any? I mean, it's a fantastic discussion we had earlier on during the week, and I was like, yeah, this is true. If you want to upgrade that person, give them increase their salary, give them other benefits, appreciate them teachers do not want much. Appreciate them in a way that they feel appreciated and valued, so that they continue to nurture and instill knowledge, skills, and competences to our children. But when you remove that person, you are creating now another gap. Africa, wake up. This is why we are doing the show. So we are also looking onto the practical training and experiential learning. What has that to do with the role of tertiary education when it, as far as practical training and experiential learning is concerned, internship and apprenticeship? Okay, so we bring in students, we bring in people that require certain skills. And I tell people, for instance, I know one of the most performing beverage company in the world. They have branches almost everywhere. And there was a time that I personally wanted to know their marketing, sales and marketing skills and techniques because they're just out of this space. Go into the villages, far end of the villages, you will find that beverage there, you know? And it comes, I think, number two or three. I think number one is water. We drink water. Number two is coffee or tea, I think. And number three is that drink. And I was like, if I want to know how to market anything, why don't I ask my friends who are working in this company for me to just go into the company, offer some services for free or volunteer so that I can spend time to really understand their their skills, their knowledge, how their competences when they've been trained or passed on to them. I'm sure they have, occasional training sessions. So for me, it was rather to go and learn, and as I said, volunteer. So give my time to go and learn. So practical training and experiential learning speaks about internship and apprenticeship, whereby it provides anyone who wants to learn, might not I wrote students, but anyone who wants to learn with the opportunities for internship and apprenticeship to allow them gain hands-on experience and develop practical skills in real-world setting. Okay, agriculture is never taught. Well, theories are taught in school and universities, but you've got to be able to dip it into your hands. They can tell you, tilt the land. And you may just think you can by just doing that, the land is tilted. Sometimes you really have to hit that hole. You really have to pedal that accelerator onto the tractor, if you have one in the agriculture sector, to actually be able to get into agriculture. So field hands-on experience through internship and apprenticeship is very critical. Theories, yes, you will be told debit, credit. This comes in, this goes out. This is the balance. This comes in, this goes out. This is the balance. But when you now get yourself evolved to attend more than 30 entries in a minute, 30 entries in a minute, because as I said, with mobile banking, for instance, Imagine mobile banking. Everyone is with their phones. They're either buying airtime, they're either transferring money, they're either sending money to friends and families. They're either, lots of this happening on. Now you are behind the scene with your debit and credit knowledge from university, and there you are. Within 1 minute, how many transactions take place? I think it's a figure that I really have to research on. How many transactions are happening within 1 minute in a mobile wallet? Okay, so field internship as well as apprenticeship are critical towards practical training and experiential learning. Again, part of tertiary education. You do not necessarily need to go to sit in a classroom. If you have time, it's fantastic. But if you want at a certain age, you want to acquire those skills, go get in the field. Then we have workplace simulation, whereby you incorporate workplace simulation and case studies into the curriculum so that it can help students develop the skills necessary to adapt workplace challenges. This is where now you have simulations before you even finish school. I recall when I went to Center for Foreign Relations studying economic diplomacy, we had a simulation of different mock-ups of, different functions. It could be a state banquet and how to address the protocol. It could be, different things. It was just amazing. So when we speak of workplace simulation, is you bring now the practical knowledge from the field to the classroom. I even recall I had a discussion over the last weekend with a friend of mine. We were looking onto how we were doing the UN assembly mock-ups. So we would have the Secretary General, would have different roles at the UN Assembly, and us back then in secondary school, late 1990s, we would mock that up. So it would give us the knowledge. It even gives you the aspiration to become a UN. I wouldn't use the word colleague. I left the UN family a long time ago. Once a UN colleague, always a UN colleague, but I'm not working any longer with the UN in the UN system. But so it gives us the aspiration, the drive to, actually be able to either visit the UN officers or be in the UN family, etc., etc. So when you bring the simulation, you give a student the practical learning, practical learning and acumenship to develop the necessary skills that will be of relevant importance when they finish schools. But again, practical skills development, very, very necessary, emphasizing the development of practical skills such as technical expertise, problem solving, and communication can help students succeed in the workplace. Okay, so you come into an interview with your A's and B's, and you cannot express yourself, so communication skills, very relevant, but again, might not speak about problem solving skills. So you give someone simple cases. How do you handle this situation? And they can tell you, I have to Google. I have to ask someone. We've had cases in Tanzania where a university graduate cannot replace a light bulb. Cannot replace plumbing. Yes, we do not do a lot of plumbing. I could have one or two issues on plumbing, but I've tried. But I recall even when we used to have the landlines, those long time landline phones. Sometimes I could troubleshoot a couple of things and maneuver and got the line back, etc., etc. So practical skills development emphasizes on development of practical skills, technical expertise, um, problem solving. You know, And it's absurd that most African countries do not even have it in them to train our children from the younger ages to acquire problem-solving skills, to acquire communication skills or technical expertise. And one of my sons, I think 2 years ago when he was doing his primary four, yeah, he's in P6 now, he's doing his P7 next year. when he finished school for primary four in Tanzania, had finished school earlier on, like a couple of months before everybody else. So when he was at home, I was just wondering, what do I mean, I can't have this boy sit the whole time watching TV. So I spoke to a friend of mine who owns a garage, and I told him, yo, I want to bring my son. He's very young. Was I think 10 then or 9. But I want him to work in your garage. Okay. I want him to learn how to change oil. I want him to learn how to replace tires, just get him busy, you know. 1 or 2 hours in a day was more than sufficient for that boy to be able to tell you things that are unimaginable. I mean, I could unimaginable. I couldn't imagine how he used to tell me exhausted, this and that. I was like, son, you will thank me for this one day. Okay, and I'm happy that he was also excited about it. So it would the guys would be fixing tires, or they will be replacing oil in an engine, or fixing this and that, and that boy would just be there. Bring that, give me that spanner, give me that, and he got it, and I was like, wow, this is critical. So public speaking, I have another little boy in my family that is keen in public speaking. He's seen his dad on different stages. It's like, Dad, I want to do that. And I tell them, yo, you blessed me, go. Here's the microphone, go. Then it would come, Daddy, what should I say now? But the confidence that the little boy has. And you would tell him now, go and invite your grandmother to say a word. He wouldn't say go and invite, so he would go and I would now like to invite my grandmother so and so to come and say a word. This is how, from the younger ages, they come to actualize those skills and be the best they can be. So, practical skills development, problem solving, technical expertise, communication, etc., prepares the students and anybody else into the field. This is Wake Up Africa, and today we're looking onto the role of tertiary education in bridging the skills gap. Some of us literally, my late dad used to say, a lot of young people spend time at jobless corners. And I never got to understand what is that. It was like, son, study hard so you don't get to spend time at jobless corners. So I think it came over 10, 15 years later for me to realize what he meant. Because now when I was probably driving or walking in my street, looking onto a prime age person seated at a prime time, gossiping and talking, and talking football, talking movies, and I'm like, prime time, prime age. And looking onto that young person down the line, maybe 5, 10 years down the line, is going to have his family. Now, if you're a family in 5, 10 years, and at this juncture now where you should be support, you supposedly consolidating that foundation, you're in the street, what my dad used to call jobless corners. Addressing specific skills gap, yes. So identifying the skills gap, problem well defined is half solved. Okay. So analyzing the skills available in the workforce and the skills required by employers can help identify areas where training is needed. This is what we call from the market to the farm, or from the market to the school. Okay. You ascertain first. So these are the demands, these are the market demands, okay? And how you can now bring them back into the classroom so that you give the students exactly what is required in the market. Identifying. So you start by identifying what is it that is required in the market. It was just yesterday when I met one of my former um colleagues in college, and I had an interesting discussion at the Africa Internet Governance Forum that is ongoing, and I was like, so Balozi, ambassador, what do you do now? And she was like, well, Austin, I have my friends, we're starting an organization, and We want to bridge the gap of, she spoke about so many things. It's like we do this, we do this, we do this. And I was just listening. And I told her, congratulations. So first and foremost, girls, there are like 5 girls doing this is amazing. So you don't want employment, you don't want anything. You're doing this. Then I recall telling her that, at times probably it's important to specialize, look onto what is required in the market. For instance, here in Tanzania at the moment and across Africa, as I said, Mission 300. Everyone is speaking about clean energy. Everyone is speaking about clean cooking. Everyone is speaking about that field. And I told her, if you specialize yourself in this area, you're certainly going to attract a lot of funders. You're going to attract government support because that's the agenda they're pushing now. That is one of the things that I told her. Number two, what I told her was also we have ESG. Everyone is signing to ESG. And I told her, take your time to understand ESG and be able now to acquire the relevant skills while it is still raw so that you're able to be the expert because it's the kind of new thing here in Tanzania. So she was like, Austin, what is that? Then I told her, ESG is what everyone is, I think from COP27, people are just signing to ESG. So ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance factors in any organization that are designed to, you know, to measure company sustainability effort from a holistic view. Okay. So environmental, looking onto most of us say, print green or recycling, etc. Social, the issues that we do at work, that are social related, and as well as governance. Sometimes you tell someone to go to work from 8 to 5, but again, the input that they have is only what 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours tops. So the rest of the times they could probably be doing something else elsewhere, which could again be very beneficial to them and probably to your organization. So I told her, look through ESG and environmental, social, and governance. It's a new concept and people are complying to that and see how you can take that forward. Again, so ESG is a framework that helps assess companies' sustainability and ethical performance. It's a holistic approach that considers the company's impact on the environment, its treatment of stakeholders, and governance practices. Okay, fantastic concept. But I recall also telling her look onto carbon credit as it's the in thing now. Everyone speaks about carbon credit. I recall, I think it was last week when I went into one of the workshops and people were speaking about, no, not last week, last month, in Arusha, Tanzania, where people were speaking about carbon credit. And I attended, I said specifically, let me go to this breakout session. But I tell you, if you had asked me right after that session, what is carbon credit, I wouldn't even be able to define it. This is not time for me to define carbon credit either. But I told also that's a niche because everyone speaks of carbon credit, but there's no knowledge, there's no repository, there's no anyone with that background that can really define, explain, and substantiate how now people can benefit from carbon credit. This is a discussion I had over a span of, no, I was having my lunch when she joined me and we had that discussion. So I told her, look onto what the market requires and then bring it back into the drawing board so that, when you're ready now to say this is our niche, I'll also be able to give you 2 or 3 contacts so that you're able to, go forward with that. And I invited that later on for dinner, which she came, which I was meant to again introduce her to a couple of people, but again, the time was too short as I'm an early bird, and I had to wake up Africa this moment. But we'll catch up. We are, in a couple of WhatsApp groups together from school. So identifying skills gap is being cognizant of what the market requires, and then tailor made to what you can produce so that you're able to only be producing what is required in the market. But we also have targeted training. Targeted training, I think most of us have undergone that, but developing programs and courses that specifically address identified skills gap, which will now come to bridge the gap between education and employment. And I have my friend Lillian Madeje, amazing young girl. She is the founder and CEO of Niajiri. I think you can go to niajiri.com and see amazing stuff that she does. And this is what she does. She goes to universities. I can't recall if she goes to secondary schools as well, but I think she goes to universities and no, she goes to secondary schools, one of the two. And then what she does is, again, spend time with the young people there and tell them what it is that you want to become when you grow up, when you finish school. And then they tell her this one, two, three, four, and then she organizes specific camps for those students. And then she brings in experts to speak to those children, students. Amazing. I think this is what she does. It's just amazing. So you start giving some sort of mentorship and coaching to the young ones as they come up, targeted training, developing programs and courses that specifically address identified skills gaps to help bridge the gap between education and employment. And this is why today Wake Up Africa discusses the role of tertiary education, because we are cognizant as Wake Up Africa that, the education system does not give it all. The street education is what gives it all. Now, when you combine your street education and what you've acquired in school, you become unstoppable. You become very resilient to anything that comes your way. So, targeted training looks onto that. You specifically address certain gaps, but again, addressing emerging technologies, as I did say many times on this discussion, that, you know, emerging technologies, so we have the AI, but staying informed about emerging technologies and ensure that curricula include relevant skills that can help students prepare for the future work. I spoke about future work on Wake Up Africa. Um, go through my previous sessions, you will see how we pondered on that. So it's interesting that the world is also looking on to um, different innovations that come in, day out, and we have to adapt and adopt. Everyone is speaking AI. The other day, it was trending on self-driven Uber up in the US, and so if we are there and you still want to be into, I recall I was talking to a friend of mine how back in the 90s when I was in secondary school, when you would want to connect to internet, there was something that was buzzing, queen, 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 queen. Pardon my voice. Today my voice is just so rusty, but Wake Up Africa must continue. So you want to cling to that, whereby now your phone could be your router and connect to the internet without any hesitation. And there you go, vis-a-vis what we used to do back in the day. So it's amazing how technology is going, and we really have to focus onto that. So tertiary education, my dear view of Wake Up Africa, is crucial in bridging the skills gap by equipping us with the necessary knowledge, competencies, and skills. Knowledge, competencies, and skills to meet the market demands. Okay, so we ought to meet the market demands because it's like holding so tight to your typewriter where people have advanced beyond typewriting these days. Some of us were very, very blessed to transverse over time where we've seen the fax machine, we've seen the typewriters, to now we have, the emails, the WhatsApp. So instantly you send a text message now to a million of people across the world through a simple tweet. You know, how amazing technology is advancing. I recall also having a discussion whereby a friend of mine gave me an example of a university professor a couple of years back going to give a lecture in another country at an airport with boxes, piles of paper, with the overhead projectors. So we used to have those, what we called films. You write your notes there and you put it on an overhead projector, and then it's projected on the wall. To a couple of years later, he's at the airport with a flash disk, and he says, where are all my boxes? 10 years ago, same airport, I had boxes that surrounded me left, right, and center. But now, I only have a flash disk with all my notes and more. I can have my videos in there, I can have my music in there, I can have my referral materials in there, and a very simple, small, this tiny flash disk, So the catch is not that he had boxes 10 years later, he has a flash disk. The catch is in his next question: how will the world be 10 years today? 10 years ago, I had boxes. Now I have a tiny little flash disk. What will happen 10 years to come? So it's important that we anticipate, we live with that open mind. We constantly expose ourselves to the evolving and changing world so that we're able to anticipate and embrace any possible change. So different mechanisms. We've spoken about curriculum development. We've spoken about collaboration with the industry. Don't live in isolation thinking you can do this on your own. But again, practical training, we've spoken about internships, apprenticeship are very crucial. This is Wake Up Africa, my dear viewer of Wake Up Africa on the 31st of May. We are now going on to the halfway of the year. Wake Up Africa has been designed, and it is designed to continue to change the narration that the world has over Africa, that things are not happening in Africa. But as things are not happening in Africa, I can recall a comment of two moves that we have to make as Africa. We cannot continuously say things are not happening because we were colonized. Okay. If today most African economies have 60 plus years of independence or 55 plus years of independence. Most African economies, 55. Think a 55 old man who still lives with the parents, waiting for food to be provided to him, electricity, clothes. 55-year-old, and you're not disabled. You've got your limbs well functioning, you've gone to school, you've got your brains, you can work, you do not have any issue whatsoever. But at 55, you're still with your parents. Your parents put bread for you in the morning. Your parents, and if you're 55, let's say your mother had you at the age of 20, so your mother is what, 75? An elderly lady who's already retired about 15 years ago still brings you bread. For those of us who still cling to saying that Africa is what we are today because of the colonial, yes, they did have their role in what we are today. But do we need to cling to that? Isn't our education in our custody now? Isn't our economy in our custody now? Yes, we could have, political independence, but we're not economically independent. But who's making decisions for us? Are we not making decisions for ourselves? And if we're making decisions for ourselves, are we not able to change our narratives? Why do we still need to hold on tight to the umbilical cords of our colonial masters? It's interesting that 2, 3 days ago on social media, someone was even asking, those hats that the judges wear, do we still have to wear those? What do they mean either way? So the policies need to be reviewed so that they are able to address the needs of and for Africa. The likes of Traore and many other interesting people in Africa, that shape the narratives, but we do not take them as our heroes, because once they are negatively perceived by the Western media, they become our enemies, our very own blood and skin. You see, very own blood and skin. But we say, well, but certain media, certain, American or British media or some country media spoke negatively or spoke ill about this African leader. So they become, enemies of democracy, our own democracy. They become enemies of our own people. Africa, we need to wake up. We need to wake up and really push the agenda forward. As we discuss the role of tertiary education in bridging the skills gap, there's a lot more to be done so that this gap is bridged. Okay, so we spoke about partnerships. And when we spoke about partnerships, we spoke about what each has a role to play. Interestingly, last Saturday, I was at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and having a good discussion with a friend of mine. Excuse me, we grew up together many days ago. And it brought in a very interesting narration. We told me, Austin, societies are in chaos not because of bad people we have in the society. You know, every individual in a given society has a role to play. I was like, God, I want to see where this one is going. Because for me, I was like, probably certain people need to be removed in a society so that it could remain harmonious. Then it took me back to the Bible years. We had Judas. I even recall sharing this notes with a friend of mine, my dear friend, listening to Wake Up Africa this morning. So he said, "You see, Austin, Jesus knew of Judas, yet he appointed him as his disciple for a role he had to play at the Last Supper when he said, 'What you have to do, do it now because my time is up.'" And Judas ended up betraying Jesus. But he said, "Do you think Judah was at fault? Or Jesus could not have stopped that? Jesus could have gone to a different garden to pray. Jesus could have stayed in the house, locked themselves up. Jesus could have gone to the synagogue or could have gone anywhere. But exactly as anticipated, he appointed Judas for that role. Judas was also an accountant within the disciples of Jesus. But the role that he was literally appointed for was that of betrayal. And from that, the church was born. Okay, so everybody, even the bad people in our society, have a role to play. Now, where does the chaos come? And this is where I appreciated that discussion last Saturday, a week ago. It says the chaos in any given society appear when a child, for instance, wants to be a father takes the role of the mother takes the role of a child like that. When people are not performing as expected, when people are not at their specific roles, an old man wants to be in a role that a young person plays. There's a fight, there's an antagonism. A young child wants to play a role of an old man. A politician wants to play a role of a doctor. It's interesting why we allow the politicians to make our medical policies, etc., certain policies, etc., etc. It just makes me sick. Then a doctor wants to become a politician. A mathematics teacher becomes a political leader. A political leader goes on. So it's those shambles that bring about chaos. But he said, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Tobias. He said, if anyone and everyone remains at their specific roles, if you're a thief, be a thief. If you're a policeman, be a policeman, because the justification of you as a policeman is when you catch a thief. Now, if you do not have a thief, you are irrelevant. Now, a thief, be a thief, a policeman, be a policeman, a father, be a father, a child, be a child. A mother, be a mother, play your role, and everything will be in harmony, not eliminating a certain group of people. And I recall back when I did biologies back in school, we spoke about the food chain. Yeah, we spoke about the food chain, who eats what eats what, all the way up to the very last uh, part. And it made sense. It made sense, but I don't think it does make sense now because everything is in every place. Now, When you stay at your specific place, be that role that is designed or designated for you, then you're in for that game. You're in for that change that you desire to see in the society. But the moment when you say, I want to move from being a, a listener to being a speaker, or from being a speaker to being a listener, then who will speak? You know, it's interesting that I had that discussion last week, and I get to share it. I think for the second or third time during the week. Interesting, very very powerful discussion I had with Ambassador Tobias. Fantastic discussion we had. Thank you for highlighting that everyone has a role in the society. And he reminded me of a statement by my president, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan of the United Republic of Tanzania, when she said, "Everyone in Tanzania is mine." So, be it the wealthy, the poor, the knowledge, that those with a lot of knowledge, those little knowledge or no knowledge at all, the sick, the healthy, everyone, as long as they're within my borders, they're Tanzanians, they're mine. It's fantastic narration. So you have to be cognizant of the role that you have. As you're looking on to tertiary education, we want to address the skills gap. We want to address the skills gap because education in Africa, as mighty as it could be, and I'm saying as mighty as it could be, probably the source of education in the world is from Africa. If you look onto education in Egypt, um, goes back how many years ago? I will find out momentarily. Goes back in Egypt, education is compulsory for 9 academic years, but I want to see. Um, so ancient Egypt education was hierarchical system, primary focus on preparing individual for specific roles. We're looking on to how old. So we're looking on to, well, I'm not getting this, but things like Egypt at the education, looking onto the pyramids, how old are the pyramids? Those are, so the pyramids of Giza are approximately 4,500 years old. 4,500 years old. The pyramids of Giza, dating back to the old kingdom of Egypt between 2589 to 2504 before Christ. Now, why specifically am I bringing the pyramids of Giza that are approximately 4,600 years old today? Is because if you read, and I've been to Egypt, but I never had the opportunity to go to see the pyramids. But if you read onto the pyramids and how they've been designed, you know, those were numbers. That was skills, we spoke about skills, knowledge, and competencies that we really want to bring into the picture. Those people were highly skilled, highly knowledgeable, and had very great competencies to be able to build structures with that keenness, one, two, that old. But if you visit today Giza in Egypt, these are 4,600 years. And this where, we're looking on to 250 years, 2,504 years before Christ, all my days. So education probably is traced back, in Africa. Now, when we speak of bridging the skills gap today, and I'm happy that my dear Alan has joined me and she will share insights as well on the topic. But as we're speaking of bridging the skills, the role of tertiary education and bridging the skills gap, do we have these structures today that will live past us 4,600 years today? Do we produce those engineers today? Do we produce those, artisans today that will sculpture anything that will live 4,600 years from today, 31st of May 2025, 4,000 years down the line. So, Alan, good morning and welcome to Wake Up Africa.
Good morning, Austin.
How are you, Alan? How is Kampala, Uganda?
Kampala is it's shining, it's beautiful. Yeah, the day is going to
Have,
be great. Happy
have
to
the
be here.
rain stopped?
No, Kampala, it can rain in the morning and then it shines an hour later. So
Beautiful,
that's
beautiful. It is, the weather is relatively chillier across many parts in East Africa. How is the weather in Uganda? I know I promised many times I'm coming and I've not. I've just been caught in the web of work.
oh yeah. But I know I'm confident I'll be seeing you soon.
Yeah. So how is it cold in Uganda at the moment?
Right now it's shining. The sun is out.
Okay, fantastic. So, Alan Subi, thank you so much for joining us, joining Wake Up Africa again. Africa really is appreciative of your insights, knowledge, and contribution towards reshaping the narratives of Africa. As we're looking onto the role of tertiary education in bridging the skills gap, we spoke about earlier on, that we have to have a tertiary education so that individuals acquire necessary knowledge, skills, and competencies to meet the evolving demands of the labor market. What is your take, and how is the tertiary education set up in Uganda?
Thank you, Austin. I'm happy to speak on this subject because in Uganda for the past over 10 years, we have had Makerere University taking in only 50% of the students that sit for USCE. What does that mean? It means that thousands of young people are left to go find other universities that may be even more expensive. Parents can't afford. So what happens to those students after senior six? And I'm happy to note that we have several tertiary institutions right now. That the list is long. And what these tertiary institutions are doing in bridging that gap is they have expanded the programs that they offer. You'll get an institute dealing with tourism and hotel management, carpentry, business, IT. The list is endless. So there are these known professions that every young person wants to be studying. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a pilot. I want to be what? But there's life even after, you know, outside of those professions. There's life, and we are seeing it right now. I engage my carpenter maybe thrice a year. I don't know about you. So there is actually a ready market for the skills that we get from these tertiary institutions, these skills that the tertiary institutions offer. So there is a gap there that they are filling, and I'm glad that the market is recognizing. Parents are warming up to them. In the event that your child does not get placement at Makerere University, at UCU and whatnot, there is room for them to prosper in these other skills that can be gotten in the tertiary institution. So yes, I agree with you on that, Austin.
Absolutely. You rightly said, and I really want to ponder on that. So, our education system does not give us exactly or necessarily what is required in the market. And this is why we have, the tertiary education. But do you see yourself, and I know, but kind of already know your response to this, Alan. Most of us have the notion that tertiary education is what you acquire after university and specifically probably after secondary school, after some sort of like formal education. Do you see yourself acquiring tertiary education at this juncture, having had 15, 20 years of work experience?
Oh, you said you already know my answer.
Of course I do.
Let me tell you something, Austin. Personally, I have a very open mind. I have a very open heart. Every year I'm enlisting in some sort of course. And right now, the course I'm doing for a year, I've added a language onto it. So
Wow.
if if an opportunity presented itself, I would take it. I would take it. And this is the beautiful thing with tertiary institutions. You can get in anytime. You can get in after senior four, after senior six. You can get in after your undergrad. You can get in after your masters. It's just to acquire those skills. Because right now, you and I are communications experts. So what happens when we need to offer more? Because we've been doing this 14, 15 years, communications. So, there's always need for an additional skill, and we have tertiary institutions to fill in that gap. So yes, I would do that.
That was exactly the answer I had, but I couldn't have put it any better the way you did it. Thank you so much. So, looking onto Uganda, I know levels of unemployment in Africa is rampant all across. And I'm not the person who points fingers on any kind of education or formal anything on the government or anything. I wouldn't do that in as much as I would have loved to do that because that is how we've been designed. Point at a finger. When Adam was asked, Adam, did you eat the fruit? He did not say yes. He said, yo, the woman you gave me. So we always like to point fingers and not give a yes or no response. Now, what do you think is the role that the industry play in terms of, offering internships, in terms of offering apprenticeship, in front of offering you and me, Alan Subi, tend to, have people in our midst, either as coaches and mentors. What roles or what more do we need to play as Africans to bridge the skills gap other than the tertiary education, which could sometimes somehow be pricey?
Austin, in my current role as head of public relations at Madmacan, I take on 3 university interns every year. And I'm grateful that management sees it fit, not just in public relations, but in all the other departments. We take on interns for 4 to 6 months, and many of those actually get retained. I know that currently we have three people in our office that came on as interns, and they did a great job, so they were retained. I think more and more organizations need to embrace that. I know that there are many interns during my time lecturing at the university. Students would really struggle to get internship placement because there are many organizations that have closed their doors to that sort of short-term arrangement. But we need to be more receptive. We need to be more helpful. And then there are others that are always willing to take them on, but give them roles like making tea, picking up their children from school. So you read an internship report and you see that the tasks they were offering communication students were way out of their learning scope. So it's not enough for us to be receiving interns, but we need to use that opportunity to actually build their skills, to impart knowledge, to impact their professional lives, because a communication student can't go away from your organization having learned how to make tea for management. They already knew how to make tea. They are coming to to get hands-on knowledge on how they're going to be working as communications professionals when that time comes. So, this is my plea to organizations. Number one, be open to taking on interns in all spaces. It could be engineering, it could be, mechanical works, it could be, quality assurance. All departments could use some interns. These people need this hands-on skill, and you'll be surprised. Right now, I have 2 interns, and my weight is lifted, you know. my weight is lifted because I spent the first month training, and now they are, they are really having fun doing this stuff. And I'm happy. I'm happy delegating. So we need to be open to receiving interns, but also investing time to train them and to give them tasks that align with what they're studying. You know, we shall be happy with time when we realize that now people finish university because they've had 4 6 months of internship. They are ready for the job market. We're not having to train them when we hire them as executives, because we trained when they were interns. Yeah.
Absolutely, totally. And as you're talking to giving the interns the opportunity, I'm also receiving quite a number of interns. I'm doing a lot of mentorships left, right, and center. But I'm also delighted to inform you, Alan, that I've also been giving recently. I've been giving a lot of university lectures at different universities here in Tanzania, from public speaking to public relations to, protocol, et cetera, et cetera. It's just mesmerizing, and how, they would ask for your numbers and do a follow-up session and come to my office. You said this, how is this done, et cetera, et cetera. It's just beautiful, and I'm happy that you brought this up. I did give an example, Alan, and I know you also have beautiful young ladies in your house. You also have a boy, yeah? You have two girls and a boy.
I actually have one girl and two boys.
Yeah, one girl and two boys in the house. How have you been, preparing them in terms of ensuring that they acquire skills outside the education system that would certainly prepare them for the future?
Um, the children are now teenagers, and I can tell you it's not been easy because school is getting busy. So finding time to put in something extra has not been the easiest thing. But I'm also a tough mom. So I'm trying to get one into coding, and while the others are doing languages and sports. And I think that's at that level because then two are in lower secondary.
Hmm.
But in this conversation this morning, I feel the need to do more. I feel they need to do more with their hands. I know the girl is a great writer. That's good. So now what else can we do? There's one who's also interested in podcasts like this one. So, so I think these are skills that I need to nurture some more. So yes, um, I know that I have friends whose children are doing they're older. Um, they're spending time in garages, and one is doing carpentry. These are very good skills, even if they don't do um, much on the professional side. These are good skills to have around the home when you get married. Things break, and you don't have to call an electrician. You have this skill. Uh, that's in the electric world. If a chair breaks, you don't have to call a carpenter. You can fix it. I think these are handy skills, and they're important for the young people to have, not just for money making, but also in the spaces where they are. They can always be helpful.
Absolutely. You're talking about technical expertise, you're talking about problem solving, which I did raise it earlier during the program, that we do not tend as parents to impart problem solving skills to our children. I gave an example of replacing a light bulb. Some of the university graduates cannot even do that, Alan Subi. They cannot do that. And would you blame that to an education system? No. Would you blame that to the teachers? No, I think this some of the things really need to originate from our home sets, so that they're able to take it forward. Alan, I raised an issue earlier on, and I would really want. I even mentioned that Alan would also come to chip in on that. The way that, luckily, your children have already advanced to lower secondary and upper secondary on their way to universities. Mine are still, one is in secondary, others are in in primary schools. One is about to finish. Um, but you've seen now children in secondary, in lower primary or in primary schools, the way they carry heavy bags. Then they go to secondary school, probably the same number of bags which have textbooks. I even recalled my own time when we had geography, one subject, but I had three different textbooks: regional geography, physical geography. I do not know what not, God knows. Then that means also I had to have three textbooks, and this is only one subject. And I was doing economics, and I was doing mathematics, and I was doing history, and I was doing all sorts. Is this all necessary, really, in really filling up our minds? Does it just fill our minds with some knowledge and skills that we will not be able to use, or rather, as you rightly say, as you see your children going through a certain um, admiration. They aspire to do one, two, three. Now you start focusing and exposing them to that set of knowledge and exposure. What's your take on that?
This is my take, Austin. I'm in my late 30s and I'm still studying. So of course, I'm not happy with them carrying heavy bags. Those are not good for their posture and their back and their backs. But I'm happy with them collecting as much information as they can, garnering as much knowledge as they possibly can while they're still young. And I'm always, giving them this example that as we age, we're even starting to take supplements to boost our memories and stuff like that.
You know why I asked you that question.
Mm.
So here you are, Alan Subi, and you have one student from Makerere University looking for an internship, and one student who just came back home from Harvard. I'm going to ask you a question about Harvard and international students later on. So you have two interns on the table that are looking for internship, but you only have a slot for one from Makerere and one from Harvard. The one from Makerere has done all sorts of subjects. The one from Harvard has only done um, American history, for instance, some sick stuff. I call them sick because what would American history help Alan Subi to public relation role in the office? And then your CEO comes and say, Alan, here are two interns. I want you to pick one. Who would you pick and why?
Oh, what a difficult question.
It is, I know, but I know you're smart. I wouldn't ask you easy questions.
Austin, here are the things I would consider. One who has done American history from Harvard um, has focused on that. So he has a proven ability to focus and give their all and be really, really good at something specific. While this one who has done multiple subjects has a versatility that I would also need in the workplace. And they you can easily, they're flexible, you can easily give them different chores and they will take them on. um I think I think I would take on the one that has multiple skills.
Okay. Do you know why I asked you that? Would you like to know why I've asked you that question?
Please.
So I've asked you that question is because the person who does American history, it's just one subject, right?
Yeah.
If you look onto the Harvard curriculum, which I wonder why is it that Africa cannot incorporate into our curriculum, the most that they focus on is not even the subject that they teach you end of the day, the certificate that you've done American history. They focus more on problem solving, you know? They focus more on competencies. They focus more. Now, if you go to our university system, Alan, as you rightly said, and bless you that you're doing your studies now and every year, and I want to do that. The only struggle that I would have to find with me is the time. Let me see if I can enroll to some evening programs, and I'm on bed by 8:30. Oh my God, school does not favor me anymore. But most of our universities, probably a very large percentage of our universities, does not even give us the curriculum, the problem solving skills and techniques. You know, I was called once by one of the ministers in Zanzibar, Austin. I was in his office and he said, Austin, let's go escort me to witness an interview. I've just been called. He was Minister for Tourism then. So we went to, he was also called by one of the CEOs of one of the largest hotels in Zanzibar. I was like, Minister, I've called you for two reasons. You've raised an issue in our previous meeting that we only employ foreigners into our hotels. So I'm conducting an interview today and I want you to not be in the panel, but I want you to sit from outside and listen to the arguments that are going to be posed by our very best Tanzanian applicant and our very best foreign applicant from within East Africa. Alan Subi, my dear friend, half of that interview, the minister told me, also, let's go back. We have to go. Let them take the foreign, applicant. Because simple skills, this gentleman, and it was a managerial position, could not demonstrate the ability. So when I asked you, I shouldn't sound like I'm undermining Makerere University as compared to Harvard, but I'm looking onto different sets of universities that all produce a university degree holder. But what does that degree come along with? You spoke about multidisciplinary that you demand at work is what will ascertain your requirement. But the moment you expose them to not levels of exposure, but problem solving, we are left far behind. Now, my question comes back to you. Would you reconsider your choice? Or you would still cling to your choice?
Austin, let me answer your question this way. And I will take it back to the discussion we're having today on tertiary institutions. Having gone to Makerere University and, high school wise, there are many managers who have gone to Uganda's traditional schools. And when they receive a job application, they are looking to, has this person gone to King's College, Budo? Have they gone to Gayaza? Have they gone to Makerere University? So we are rigid as managers because we are looking out for people that have gone to those particular schools, as opposed to what skills they have garnered throughout their education. So because we still have many managers who have gone to King's College Budo, then you find that the people that are being hired are from King's College Budo. We have failed to look out for those people that have gotten skills in the tertiary institutions that are just cropping up. We are not looking for skills. We are looking for, if this person has gone through King's College Budo, it's automatic. They are good because it's a good school. And that's where we are, failing the system. If we could give a chance to people because of their skills, because of their grades, as opposed to where they have attained their education, if we could be open-minded, even in our interviews, but it's a human thing, and it's difficult to change, because we know that King's College Budo has celebrated 60 years of existence. And if you're to look at, if you were to do a dipstick and you look at the present day CEOs in all these corporate entities, you'll find that maybe 50 or more have been to King's College Budo. Then
Wow.
you are for content from that school, all right? Yet there are other new schools that have also perfected education and learning, that they are putting out good output. So going back to your question, I appreciate the Harvard skill, I know the skill set, I know they are rich, I know what they're looking for, even at admission level. I know that the person coming out of Harvard will be polished. However, I want to believe that by the time these are two people on an interview panel, the other person has something special about them too. I want to explore it. I want to explore it. I want to believe that while this one has become a specialist, an expert in this field, American history, yeah, there is a lot more that this other person can offer because their knowledge and skills is spread wide. They have, so then I can start training from there, orienting and, inducting from that level. And then I can, and don't get me wrong, there's room for the for the Harvard person too. But also, but also I know that they can also, some institutions are keen on training job makers, not job seekers. So I know that the Harvard person can be a consultant, can open up their own consultancy firm and excel on that path, while this other one is trainable and I could use in my organization.
Appreciate it for your feedback, Alan Sobe. Thank you so much. Now, I'm asking a very simple, though it could sound a technical question, Alan. I want to understand, and this has been disturbing me as I was putting up this topic. If tertiary education is that gap between what we acquire in education and what is required in the market, why don't we bring tertiary education in secondary schools and at university so that by the time you finish your secondary school or by the time you finish your university degree, you have already acquired some certain skills that can act as your launching pad? What do you think is the challenge to bringing tertiary education into the formal education system?
Austin, it's actually happening. It's actually happening, and I'm glad that every 3, 5 years, the curriculum is being revised. So that's happening. From, oh God, this is going to expose me, but I've been out of secondary for quite some time, and yet even then, I remember we were studying home economics. That's to do with culinary stuff. We were studying carpentry and woodworks. So these skills are being introduced onto the curriculum, but of course at that level, it's not, because like I've said, and that's a challenge I'm having even for my children going to international schools. There is so much that is being fed them that you then struggle as a parent on where to, or if you're going to be overloading them with more skills, because the schools are already doing enough of this sports, I don't know, computers studying. They're doing AI, they're doing coding. They're doing so much already that that's a good thing. So after higher secondary, when they choose to take on anything handy, I think then they are in a better place to focus on that, but they have built some skills as they've been in their secondary. Yeah, I'm happy to note it's happening right now.
I want to fully agree with you, Alan. We did speak the other day on how the curriculums have been reviewed to now being competence based. Okay. And we all look so much in anticipation. Tanzania, thinking it's in our second year now since we've started using the competency based. And really, I'm looking forward to seeing the results that come out of this revised curriculum. And I'm hoping that they will address the skills gap. Now, tell us, Alan, on a lighter note, Trump administration recently invoked exchange visitors program for international students into Harvard. What is your take on that?
Yeah. Um, I think the general Trump policy is to alienate the United States of Africa, of America from the world, and to basically have them exploit their resources, maximize their resources as a country, but for their own citizens, and to have Africa and other continents do the same. Stay where you are. We won't even help you. Build your own resources and use those. Um, I just woke up to the news that we need to urgently was in bold letters. The Ugandan government has approved. The Ministry of Finance has approved a proposal to borrow some large sums of money, and it's an urgent need to finance the budget. We've talked about this on the same platform. So, and I think that's news that annoys Trump so much, because we should be living within our means, according to him, as Africans. So, even for Harvard, he's done that, and I don't think he's going to stop. I think soon he'll be also capping their medical, to stop us Africans from going from taking our patients to American hospitals, I think. So what does that mean for us? We need to better our institutions of learning. We need to also be contented with what we have. We need to, even those that can afford, that have been taking their children to Harvard, we need to just make our universities great and stay here. We also need to embrace online studying. There are many great online universities, so children don't have to feel the need to go abroad to study. And employers and business people, entrepreneurs, they need to be open to taking in skilled people from other universities, not just Harvard. That's what it has come to. And it's a harsh reality we have to face. And I'm glad that Trump's policy is is getting us here. It's getting us where we really ought to be, embracing our own institutions, investing heavily into making them better, and having our children study here and yet attain the same quality of education they could have attained at Harvard. Yeah, so I don't think it's a bad move.
Mhm. I totally agree with you, and I fully agree with you. I am on the other side, wishing to understand, Alan Subi, that we are not going to Harvard. We are not going to Harvard on scholarship. We are not
Mm,
going to American hospitals on medical free bill. We are paying for the services. We are paying, and you and me better know that international students pay almost tenfold what a local student, or probably they don't even pay. So most universities globally, international universities globally, tend to spend the resources that are accrued from international students to run the universities. You
mm.
see, so in as much as it's a great move that we make our own Harvards in Africa, but do you think it is an appropriate move to just revoke, or at least give someone time to reorganize themselves?
Um,
And I
Unfortunately,
want you to
Trump,
be very blunt right now, as you were on your first response. I,
yes,
I'm
much as
I'm 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 with Trump 100% when he said I'm cutting aid to Africa, and I want everything US stopped in Africa yesterday. I'm pro that. But when it comes to education, this is not aid. They're not giving us aid. We are paying to acquire what they learn at Harvard. That is Harvard University is such an old university as well. I'm cognizant of that. And it goes with when you speak of uh, time, Harvard, Allen, Harvard University is 388 years old.
mm,
It was founded on the 28th of October, 1636.
well,
Okay. as the oldest institution of higher education in the US. It offers blah 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 blah. Now we go to such institutions for so many reasons. They have that rich knowledge there, that they've gone through what we're going through many years ago. They have evolved, so they know that they are the game. Okay. Now, if Harvard for us was giving us free courses, if Harvard for us was giving us free tuition, then I would have said, cut that. We are better than that. Okay. But we go there. It's not a cheap university. It's one of the most expensive universities in the world. So people want to go there, not because they can afford. Yes, because they can afford, they go there. But because of that, you know, 388 years of existence, Alan, you are going there to acquire that rich wealth of knowledge repositories that is there, you know. So would still your take be no to international students to access Harvard because you want to, isolate US from the rest of the world? Do you think this is a good move? Not right move. It could be the right move, but is it a good move?
Um, you see how you and I, Austin, are here reasoning this out. Unfortunately, Trump doesn't seem to take any rational decisions. He seems to be an irrational guy. You see how he spent his first week in office, the decisions he was making. So he may not be looking at things the way we are looking at them. And I know that your concern was it's also cutting off revenue because our foreign students are paying a lot more than what's required of the local students. But listen, if USAID has been cut off from around the world, then the United States of America has enough money to feed into Harvard and other institutions of learning. So I think it makes sense from their standpoint. It does make sense, but again, because it's not an issue within our control, what we can do as Africans is to also invest and get those Ivy League universities back home. Why not? Why not? You know,
What
we
about
do
what about diversity? What about diversity? What's your take on diversity, Alan?
we can build that here back home because like I've said, Austin, it's not an issue that's within our control. I don't think Trump is open to having talks so that his mind is changed. No, he's made his decision and we need to align. But now, how do we align, but also use this as an opportunity, this threat, this weakness? How do we turn it around so that it stands as a strength and an opportunity for us? You know, so if if that's the call on their end, we need to also call something on our end. Number one, I know that still it's been a couple of years when President Museveni here opened up the education industry to having more universities, more private universities, some foreign here. Okay, and there's been a step further than that, building physical premises here. We are also having online university education. You know,
Mm.
so um, so what needs to happen even further is more investment into the physical local universities. UCU, Mukono, Chambogo, which produces so many tertiary skills, Makerere University. There are so many, getting branches all over the country and also expanding on our offering. I think now is a good time to have this in response to Trump's measures.
Hands up, Alan, hands up. My hands are super stretched up. I give up, not giving in, I give up. But for me, really, in the context of diplomacy, in the context of diversity, in context of inclusivity. Um, I kept thinking on that move, and I was like, who and what does it think we are? As in, we go to Harvard with blank minds, we have nothing to share.
Mm.
We do not have knowledge of our own to really go and exchange with theirs what they have back there. And you will be surprised, and you and me both know that most inventions in the world have originated from Africa. Even the traffic lights, the C-section, they've all come from Africa. So when you want to isolate your country, then probably you need to really, as you rightly said, not in the position to open his mind and receive ideas. But I'm happy that you brought the fact that Africa needs to sit down as Africa and think through thoroughly and create our own Harvards here in Africa. Thank you so much for that, Alan. That is truly a take for this show this morning. As we wind up Wake Up Africa this morning, Alan, and as we were discussing today the role of tertiary education in bridging the skills gap in Africa, what are your final takes?
Um, it's been a lovely discussion, very insightful that we've had this morning, Austin. And for me, on a personal level, I know that I need to do more um, for myself and for my children in terms of garnering handy skills. Handy skills. So I'm going to be looking out for opportunities more than I have been. But for Uganda and the rest of Africa, the call is for us to be more open-minded and to also invest in these tertiary institutions with the appreciation of the skills that they have to offer us and the market. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this conversation has been had, and like all the other conversations we've had here, I always look forward to them being tabled in the presence of policymakers that can make these decisions to invest more, and for parents to be more open-minded. If your child cannot get into flying school, they can always do. There are all these skills that they need, not just to make money, but to also have as a skill for a grown up. We need to be open to giving these to our children. Yeah.
Absolutely. And next week, Alan, I'm going on to your field. I want us to discuss on the role of media in rewriting Africa's narrative. And I look so
Yeah.
much forward to your input. And allow me, Alan, to invite if you have anyone that can also contribute to the what media role has in Africa from Uganda onto the program. Please bring them on so that we are able to, bring different diversities. As I so much believe in diversity, and this is why Wake Up Africa is, just bringing every great mind possible we can fish. So we want to look onto now the role of media. From the onset, we are looking onto how media only the Western media only takes the negative aspects of Africa. But what do we have to say of our own media here in Africa?
Very interesting topic. I'm happy to be on board, and I will. I know some people that would be happy to deliberate on the subject. I'll bring them.
Thank you so much. So I wish you a fantastic weekend. Love to the family. Let's take our children to the direction that we really aspire them to be able to be independent, be able to be the change makers of the world that we want to see through the skills that we can share with them from the onset.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Austin, for having me. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you so much, Alan Subi. And that marks the end of Wake Up Africa this 31st of May 2025. As we are going on to June, half of the year, I want to wish you all, my dear viewers of Wake Up Africa, a fantastic remaining half of the year. It's going to be an amazing half of the year, as it has been an amazing first part of the year. And let's meet next week on Wake Up Africa, same time and place, as we are going to ponder on the role of media in rewriting Africa's narrative. Up until next week, I'm your host, Austin Makani. Thank you so much for watching Wake Up Africa. See you and have a fantastic weekend.